Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to what is today us going through and doing a review of the Drakkar Knight Class, which is available from the Generosity Shop 2.0. I'll also be looking at a class build using Forge enhancements for this as well. First of all though, how does the base class shape up? So overall this one is getting a rank B. It is a B for solo, a B for support, PvP is a C, and farming is also down at a C. Inevitably, if you are using Forge, then yes, these stats will greatly increase. At the end of the video, we will load fully up the class skills, but first of all, if we just look here, your skill 2 will apply Flammable, which applies a bonus effect of a heal over time off of your skill 5, whereas skill 3 applies Dumbfounding, which is used on your skill 4 for some debuffs against your enemy. Now, let us talk about those Forge enhancements. So, you want to go with Wizard for this one, Valiance, Layman, and Numa. That is the combination we will be rocking. Before I show you the preview of how the class plays with those on, let's just take a look at the base class, and what we mean by that is just full Wizard. We've not got any damage boosters on at all. It is literally just core stats for those of you who maybe haven't got lots of end game bits and bobs, just to see the damage output that you could potentially be getting, and spoiler alert, it's not the highest in the world. Combo wise, I tend to start with a 3 out of habit and then go for a 4, followed by a 2 and a 5, and then just keep on using 2 and 3, then 4 and 5 once the back, depending on if I either have Flammable on or if I have Dumbfounded on. It's worth noting that those two effects do cancel each other out, so if you apply Flammable and then hit skill 3 for Dumbfounded, you're going to lose Flammable and you're going to be Dumbfounded instead, if that kind of makes sense. So you can't have them both on at the same time. You've got to pick and choose which way you go about using it, which is why I find I just rotate them. Damage wise, this is a mid-tier class, but you will be able to get some fairly punchy numbers out of it, even on the standard base setup. That does include one in a minute. You'll see about a 13k crit, so that was quite nice when that comes up. Damage over time is decent as well. You do have that ticking away in the background, and for some reason, it might just have been the way I was playing, it does seem to get stronger as the fight goes on, but I'm not sure if it's meant to happen quite like that or if that's just a me problem. The class is very straightforward to use. It has good survivability because the heal over time is pretty strong that you're getting off skill 5 as long as you have your Flammable on beforehand. As you can see, that is ticking away in the background very nicely for me, and also it's not the hardest class in the world to get, it's just a little bit pricey. 2,500 ACs I believe, as you need 10 generosity coins. My maths could be slightly off on that. We will be doing just Forge in a second, but for the moment we have not only our Forge enhancements on that we showed you at the start of the video, we also now have some potions to go with it, and as you can see, we have got very racy very quickly. So you will be getting up to your 28,000 damage a second numbers, which isn't too far off, but also leveling with some of the best soloers in game. Although I'm fairly sure the majority of us won't want to be potting up for just your bog standard boss fights, only really if you're going into ultras etc, or maybe something a little bit tougher. So this bit isn't always relevant, but I like to see what sort of numbers we could maybe potentially be maxing out towards. Now we're looking at just our Forge, so we've removed the potions, and this is what it will be playing like if you are using the build. Radiant Goddess of War was equipped at this moment in time, and we also had Exalted Apotheosis running our Valiant, so just worth noting those two bits of extra information. As you can see though, the numbers now get around 13,000 damage a second. I think that's roughly where we top out at this point. They're a lot more moderate now. However, bearing in mind, we've just stuck on some endgame Forge that you may already have just lurking there, and now we're getting numbers that maybe you'd be expecting off some of the more decent soloers. Actually, it does become a slightly more viable option. Of course, your S-tier soloers like Void High Lord will be putting out these sort of numbers as standard, so it's always worth just having that thought in the back of your mind. Overall though, if I was going to be going along and buying this, I'd probably just be picking up for the rarity rather than the actual usability of it. Unless you're not an endgame farmer, then maybe it would play into something that you could potentially use if you're planning to pick up some Forge, but again, if you're not picking up Forge, I probably wouldn't be spending my money on this class. We do have some mid-range skills, so it's not totally useless at farming. You can hit enemies from a bit further away, but again, it's just going to be one at a time, so not really something you'll typically want to use. PvP is an interesting one, as the first time you use your skill 3, you disarm your foe, reducing the outgoing damage by 80% for 4 seconds, so that is actually really useful if you want to get a little bit of a head start, but when you come up against things like Void High Lord, potted players, even the Yami here, it's not always going to go your way. You're not going to get that extra effect again. And yes, you can debuff your enemy a little bit, but overall we're probably going to be losing against those outright PvP classes. Okay, so I said earlier we would ping up the skill. Dragon's Fire. Strike your foe with a blade infused with Dragon Fire, dealing unavoidable damage and making your foe flammable, reducing the magical resistance by 30% and damage over time resistance by 50% for 15 seconds. During this time, Spellblade will set your foe on fire, burning them over time for 15 seconds. Stacking to 3 replaces Dumbfounded, so maybe you could use Dragon's Fire a few times. Dragon's Might. Skill 3. Strike with the might of a dragon, dealing unavoidable damage and dumbfounding your foe for 15 seconds, reducing their physical damage and crit chance by 25%. During this time, Spellblade has a 20% chance to stun your foe for 2 seconds, replaces Flammable. The first time this skill is used in combat, you disarm your foe, reducing their outgoing damage by 80% for 4 seconds. Skill 4 is Swordplay. Strike precisely at your foe, dealing unavoidable damage and applying Swordplay, increasing your damage resistance by 40% for 15 seconds. If your foe is dumbfounded, your attack is particularly effective, granting you Masterful, increasing your outgoing damage and dodge by 10% for 15 seconds, stacking up to 3. And then lastly, you have got Dragon's Breath, which is your skill 5. Conjure the power of Dragon's Breath, burning your foe for unavoidable damage. If your foe is flammable, gain a stack of Blazing Siphon, a heal over time lasting 15 seconds and stacking again up to 3. So for those of you who may notice at the start of the video, we said this class also has that support element. That comes off skill 3 with the way you debuff your enemy and that chance to stun. So it does have some interesting effects in there, and maybe there are some boss fights you could go along and just hit 3 for a little bit. Who knows? The point is, it exists in this class, and it's another way you could potentially use it to play in some scenarios. As always though, thank you very much for watching, and if you are thinking of picking this class up, just remember it is going to be a rare one, but overall probably one that's going to end up likely in your bank. But until next time, have a lovely day, and I'll see you all again incredibly soon.